This week, the Utah Highway Patrol launched a safe driving campaign ahead of the 100 deadliest days, the time when we see the most fatal crashes. And they're targeting a specific audience, teens in rural Utah. News specialist Andrew Adams shows us how Richfield troopers are sharing an important safety message with young drivers.
In a rural town, I think speeding is a pretty big issue.
Anybody who lives in Richfield knows the reality.
Most of the time, you're not on the road with a bunch of other people.
Small town does not equal small speeds. And sometimes that can add up to larger problems.
Just seeing other people speed and kind of recklessly drive, it's a little bit scary to me.
The 2-hour block of time in a calendar day that contains the highest number of crashes is 3 to 5 p.m. It directly correlates to school letting out.
Utah Highway Patrol says teenagers who drive to and from schools like Richfield High are all too often at the center of those problems.
Hey, good morning, Wildcats. How are we?
That's why troopers showed up today.
I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of it before, but there's this thing called the 100 deadliest days.
They wanted to drive home a message about safety at a time of year when it matters most.
From the days between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we have more people killed on our roadways in the state of Utah than we do the other 265 days a year.
The instruction to kids was simple.
Do the small things. Buckle up, put your phone down, and obey the speed limit.
And it came with a warning that troopers would be watching.
There's going to be 75 extra hours of state troopers working to issue citations for distracted driving and seatbelts.
I've heard about the Utah's deadliest days, but I didn't really know what it was.
Student leaders only hoped their friends would do their part to make these small town streets safer.
If we can see that, I think, and fix it a little bit, the impact will be very large.
That would be a great impact. To fully appreciate that, we asked troopers why the focus on rural central Utah. Here's Lieutenant Jason Kelsey again at Gunnison Valley High.
In rural Utah, we realized that during the 100 deadliest days of summer that's coming up, the demographic that was involved in the most crashes was the teenage demographic. 18% of the crashes that we had last year during the 100 deadliest days in these 5 counties, San Pete, Sevier, Wayne, Garfield, and Paiute counties, were teenage drivers. And so we thought a good way that we can connect with the drivers is while they're still in school and get them ready for the 100 deadliest days and hopefully give them something to think about.
You mentioned that it's easy to think rural Utah, there's not a traffic concern or a driving concern, but we don't understand maybe some of the realities.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even not just for teenagers, but for us, if we're on a rural roadway, we think that the distraction's more acceptable. There's less going on around us. We could pick up our phone, we could look at it, we could travel faster. We could maybe not wear our seatbelt, especially when we're in a rural area where there's not going to be much traffic between point A and B on those short trips. And so I think there's a little bit of that goes on, especially with the teenage drivers that, well, we feel indestructible. Well, it's not distracting here. It's okay for me to look at my phone and things like that. Just today, I was at Richfield High School and we identified 8 people that pulled up to me to receive their sticker, their bracelet, that were not wearing their safety belts. When I'm standing right there and they're getting ready to leave the parking lot, and all the time
Right there in front of you.
I forgot. I'll put that on, and so definitely it was an opportunity for us to engage them and educate them without them feeling the arm of the enforcement part. Although that's important, but to connect with them and also share with them some of these statistics too, to hopefully get them thinking, because I'm not always going to be standing in the parking lot.
Yeah, and I guess at this point you can still build those habits.
Yeah, and it's the small things. That was the message of a lot of what we got from the Highway Safety Office is put on that seatbelt before you leave. The text or the snap can wait. Drive the speed limit. We have a lot of our crashes on these rural roadways are overcorrecting. Well, they're leaving the roadway and then overcorrecting, and then it becomes far, far worse than if they just had ran off the roadway. And so just kind of those little things that maybe get them to think, Deanie, the time of day that they're most likely to be a crash in these 5 counties in rural Utah, teenager or not, is 3 to 5 p.m. And we think that correlates with, that's when they're leaving school. They get in the car with their buddies. And if we can make them just think, gosh, this is the most likely 2-hour block in the day that I could crash my car, is when I'm driving, I think then we have a chance to alter their behavior in a way that's positive for everyone on the roadways.
You mentioned time of day, and then you've talked about time of year. You see kids at this end of year and in summer getting together and having, fun activities, and maybe not being as careful as they can. And we've seen so often it ends in tragic results.
In these 5 counties over the last 5 years, we've lost 52 people on our roadways. 10 of them, or almost 20%, have been teenagers. And so when I share that statistic with them and tell them almost 20% of the people who die on our roadways here in these 5 counties are youth, hopefully they recognize that a little bit and think about when they're signing that yearbook at the end of the year, have a good summer, see you next year, that they're really going to increase the odds that they're going to see them next year.
So you mentioned the engagement part, the enforcement part. What are you out doing on this afternoon and what are you seeing on the roads?
Through our partners at the Highway Safety Office and the Department of Transportation Zero Fatalities, we received 75 additional hours to be worked from Sunday through Saturday this week, focused on distracted driving contacts and seatbelt contacts. That doesn't mean that we have to write them a citation, but that we're going to go out and target those things specifically when we have troopers already doing the normal duties and taking calls, where that trooper can focus in 5-hour windows, 15 of them, on educating and enforcing where appropriate the seatbelt laws and distracted driving laws in our state. And we're running into a lot of it. Like I mentioned earlier, just kids leaving the school. Unfortunately, we're going to be pretty successful in finding people that need that education and sometimes that need that little extra bump for them to voluntarily comply with the laws that our legislature put in place because we care about these people.
You heard Lieutenant Kelsey talk about seatbelts in particular, and that's because it's a dangerous trend that safety leaders are trying to reverse. They say young kids and the elderly are likely not to wear their seatbelts.
Sometimes they're not properly restraining the seatbelt. Maybe they're putting it over their head because it feels uncomfortable around their neck or chest.
Click It or Ticket is focusing on teaching people, young and old, how to properly wear their seatbelts. Starting tomorrow for 2 weeks straight, state troopers will also be out writing tickets to drivers and passengers who don't buckle up. Coming up, BYU Hawaii takes the Aloha Spirit and the Holy Spirit to Carnegie Hall as they debut a new production. Up next, a special tribute and prayer following the Lahaina fires.